You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready?
Welcome to The Ready Writer. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is Bridgette L. Collins. Let's get the show started. All right, so first question for you, being you are an author, was writing and becoming an author a childhood dream, or was this something that happened later on in life?
For me, it happened some years later in my life. It was as the result of me becoming a personal trainer and getting really into the fitness world, starting to run marathons and things like that. And my dad is actually the one that had planted the seed to say, you know what, since you're into all that fitness stuff, you ought to write you a book about it. And I'm thinking like, oh, okay, well, that's really for famous folks. What I look like trying to write a book. And that's just kind of how that seed just stays there. And as life progressed, I got more involved in the community doing fitness stuff. It was kind of like, and you keep hearing the same stories over and over and over about people and their inability to make healthier lifestyle challenges and the whys that contributed to that inability. And it's kind of like you can only share so much with individuals when you're face to face with them. And I thought about it, it's like, well, what if I put a bunch of stuff in a book, create these fictional stories of examples of why people are struggling with health and wellness, health and fitness because of maybe being in a bad marriage, having some financial issues, having children that, that are causing all of the things that we just typically deal with life, that our health and fitness take a back seat. But to embed in these stories factual information about the importance of living healthier, exercising, incorporating eating habits, and how these fictional characters came into this consciousness about what they needed to do in spite of the things that were going on in their personal lives.
Great. So originally you said that when the seed was sown, your first reaction was, that's not for me. Um,
Yeah.
when did you get to the point to where you were like, okay, I'm going to do this? And what I would say, what gave you the courage to do it? Because when you talk about publishing a book, it's we make it think it's like, rocket science. It's only for certain people, and I can't do that. So what encouraged you to actually sit down and write this book and actually go with the notion that you are going to publish a book?
So you know what, Case, it really would, and if I just be totally transparent and honest about that whole process, it's like I had created my fitness organization, Mac Fitness, making a commitment to fitness. I was running marathons, and keep in mind my 30 years of full-time employment. I've been an HR professional, all the way up to like an assistant HR director. And so I had all of that going on, and plus doing stuff in the community. And so one day it's like I just started having some health issues. And it's like woke up one day and literally couldn't get out the bed. And so went through a series of tests, uh, I had a rheumatologist, a hematologist, a dermatologist, because it's like my body broke out in all these hives, and they couldn't figure out what had gone wrong with this girl that was into this fitness. She ate healthy, she exercised, and she did all of these things. And so one thing just kind of led to another. I got under the care of a good rheumatologist. He put me on this cocktail of, and they never came out with an official diagnosis. He treated me as though I had lupus. And so I was on the steroids with this lupus medication, and that went on for probably about 2 to 3 years. And I would always ask my rheumatologist, and keep in mind, I still got the fitness business. And so I've had some of my runner friends at that time, they would come and help me because I really couldn't do the physical part. It was like I still was able to do the motivational part. Oh yeah, you can run that marathon. Oh, you can train. And, so I still had the business going on. And so was blessed to have people to help me keep that going with the fitness part of it. And so what I always ask my rheumatologist is kind of like, well, when I'm gonna be able to run again? And so, you know, I guess that little fella, he looked at me kind of like, well, girl, you need to be trying to just get better. You know, walk just like you know, normally and stuff. And so it was just a blessing that, you know, whatever cocktail, and this has been some years ago, that he put me on, healed my body to where my final visit with him was like, you're in remission. And so when somebody tells you you're in remission, you already know that it can come back. And so after I went through that process with that illness, and I thought about all of the stories that I would hear people share with me about their inability to live healthier, and then I thought about it, you know, how I had came out of that illness, and I wanted to use that as a message to say things might have been a lot different for me had I not been a healthy individual, had I not had this fitness level. And so just to kind of, and so after that is kind of when I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and figure out how I can put that in a book to where hopefully it will resonate and inspire people to make better choices. And so, and that's when I came up with the concept. It's kind of like, as you know, there are tons of health and wellness and fitness books out on the market. But I didn't find one that was a hybrid of fiction and nonfiction, where through these stories, people are learning, in spite of what's going on in their personal lives, that they can be healthy. That should be first and foremost, paramount in one's life, because it will set the stage. It's like, it's one thing to be in a bad marriage, but when you sick with high blood pressure, diabetes, and high cholesterol, and some of the other stuff, rheumatoid arthritis, it just magnifies the situation, and you just living life just unhappy. And that's what I saw with a lot of folks. You know, if you're in a lot of financial problems already, and then you've got all of this medication that you're having to buy, you know, to kind of help with whatever is going to help you with. Well, if you get off the medication, that frees up some money. But first, you got to make some good choices in terms of your health and wellness. Then you're going to feel better about life. Then you're going to start doing all of these things that you had visualized for yourself, because you're in a better space. And so all of the characters in those books, you know, my first book, Imagine Living Healthier, Mind, Body, and Soul, Destined to Live Healthier, Mind, Body, and Soul. It's just stories. It's like each book has 3 different stories. You got Todd, who's the wife, left him with the children because she went off to be with another man, and he was overweight and he had these health issues. And so you get to see how Todd evolved from that trauma of that marriage and that divorce, and now having the children that she left him with. And so you get to see what he starts to be a runner and all of this kind of stuff. Then we deal with the older folks, you know, the retirees. It's kind of like, you know, a lot of times people think, well, it's too late. You know, I'm in my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's like, it don't really matter at this point. So now, you know, one of the books deal with the retirees and how they lost a friend through cancer. And it's like, it was eye-opening, and to say, you know what, we still got time. We can make some choices that can make a difference. And so those 2 books in particular are riddled with stories just like that, that I tried to use the divorcee now with the single parent, but I wanted it to be a male, because we always think in terms of the female being the single parent. And so now he's the male, the wife, you know, Sarah, the single person, you know, had it going on, you know, corporate job, and came in one day and she didn't get the job that she thought she was overweight, and she goes on these cruises with a friend. They eat the buffet, they do all of these things. And, you know, and she woke up one day when the boyfriend left her saying, you know what, I got to make some changes in my life. So those are the kinds of stories that those 2 books in particular. And then we got Broken in Plain Sight, which was kind of based on my own personal life, which, family members who are still broken because of things that had happened in their childhood and they hadn't quite resolved that. And so that's where I came up with the idea of Broken in Plain Sight. And so then you asked me about the chip maker. Well, that was just a whole nother direction, to kind of take me out of the realm of what I had done with the health and fitness. And so, but I think going back to your original question, it was just kind of like when, it's like when I made up my mind that I wanted to write a book, it was about, okay, so what does that look like? Well, I guess I need to try to find some folks that's written a book to help educate me on that process, and just started Googling. We're talking about that first book, Imagine, was published in 2007. So this like 2005, 6 that I'm looking for resources to help me with now that I've kind of come into this, that I think I want to do this. Well, now I know I need to get some help. And so started researching writing groups, writing conferences. And I was living in Dallas at that time and was blessed that a writing conference was coming. And it was the Black Writers Conference. And it was just kind of like, oh, I got to sign up there. Let me pay my $250 or $300 or whatever the conference fee was. And it was just such an eye-opening experience for me to be in a room with aspiring writers at that time, people that had actually written books and was doing well. You had editors in the office, in the audience, conducting workshops and seminars. You had publication companies there, and so just to see, and then it's kind of like you connect with these authors now. That was kind of like the height of social media at that time. It wasn't like it was full-fledged like it is now, and it's kind of like, well, let's connect, let's stay in touch. And and it's kind of like the people that had written the books, it's kind of like, well, what did you do? Did you get an agent? Did you get a publicist? Did yada, yada, yada. And so that's really what helped me with that first book, is that I got that knowledge from people that had already done it, and it had gotten some resources that I could just email and say, well, what do you think about this? Who should I contact? Yeah. And so that's kind of like, and that's what I advise anybody, it's like a lot of people want to write a book, and, you're here, it's kind of like, well, I don't have the patience to sit down and write a book. I don't know how to get started on writing a book. And I tell people, it's like, if that's what you really want to do, you got to put in the work. First, do your research. It's like, I want to be one of the authors too that now share whatever knowledge I have. But you don't want to just start with me. You want to find you some conferences to go to. Find you some podcasts to listen to where you're just getting a perspective from all over the place. And then hopefully you come into your own about what it is you want to do in terms of writing your book. It's like when they talk about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, what does that mean? For me, I guess self-publishing just worked because I just want to be in control of everything.
I understand.
When I hear people talk about this, public, unless you're like one of the big time authors, I mean, like, like a John Grisham or, just some of these big time folks, it's like, really, you got to be if you with a publishing company, they expect you to be hitting that pavement too. And so you don't just get to sit back and they just schedule you for events. They expect you to be a part of that process. And I'm thinking, well, it's like, if I got to hustle, let me just do it, and I have full control. And I don't look at it in terms of selling a bunch of books, whether I was successful or failure. It's kind of like, if somebody got the book and it inspired them to do something different with their lives, that's what's important to me. And so I think people have to be careful about making if they didn't make the bestsellers list, that's like, okay, well, it's like, I've been a runner all my life, and the hallmark of being a runner is to get to run the Boston Marathon. Well, I've been doing it 20 plus years now, and the likelihood that I'm gonna get to run in the Boston Marathon, qualify for it, we'll just say, because you can do the charity route, but to qualify for it, I'm not willing to put in that kind of work, and I'm a little too old to do it. So, and so people just have to realize that, you know, you just kind of have to find what works best for you, and then to say, you know what, life isn't promised, the next day isn't promised, and I just need to get about the business of doing the research, finding the resources, figuring out how I'm gonna get it done.
Yes. Well, first I want to say I want to thank you because, of course, most books are either all entertainment or all educational, and I guess people don't like to mix the two. And I'm glad you chose to mix the two because, you know, if they get your book and they don't really know what it's really about, they might read it for the sake that they think it's all entertainment, and then they'll read that book and, you know, they'll get the information they need. Most people know there's something wrong with them, they just won't get a book to find out. You know, they're not into the, you know, self-help, they're more into being entertained. So by the time they read your book and they go, oh wow, there's actually some information in here for them, that might even encourage them to get more nonfiction book to get help. And so I'm glad you chose to blend the two, entertainment and education, into one, because it's not something most authors do. And it's definitely, like you said, just not, there aren't really any authors out there who do that. So there aren't any books that do that. So you're kind of on a platform on your own, which is good because you don't have any competition out there. You know, and the other thing I wanted to mention was, yes, that's something, when you mentioned being either self-published or with an agent, with a traditional publishing company, there was a time where you didn't have to do as much work. That has completely changed. And I think it's mostly because of social media. I know when I started publishing, I think midway, I said, I think I'm going to get some help. And I contact a marketing team. And the first thing, before, you know, they said, okay, this is how much we charge, blah, blah. The first thing they asked me was, what are you going to do to help? And my response was, pay you. I thought that's that's what I thought I was paying. Isn't that what my money's doing? And they basically, what they said was, they want to know what you're going to do, what you've already done, and that determines whether or not they're going to work with you, which means they don't just take clients on. They have to evaluate you. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And so nowadays it's like, you got to do the work no matter how you do it. So if you're someone, and I completely understand, because sometimes, even if what you're writing is right, if it's not politically right, or if it's not what's in trend, you know, the publishing company might want you to change some things so that you're not offending anyone. And sometimes it's not even bad, it's just at that moment in time. Like if the trend is wearing, I don't know, a red t-shirt, if a character has a blue t-shirt, they're gonna, oh, you're gonna need to change the color of the t-shirt because that's not the trend today. And it's like, it has nothing to do with the story, you know. And so it is, if you have a problem with changing, even they might tell you to change the gender of a character, or, you know, something like that, I would definitely suggest self-publishing. So you already answered my next question. What did you do to learn? You said conferences and research. I really like that idea. So what have you been doing, you know, because you've been doing this, you said, since 2007, so I'm sure you're aware of book festivals and writing signings, book signings. Once 2020 came in, March, April, I'm sure you took a month or two to take a break. When you got back into things, what did you start to realize, or things you needed to do differently as far as marketing your books, now that, you know, those opportunities weren't available?
So I have to be honest with you, Casey. I think that last book, The Chip Maker, was probably published in 2016. And so about that time, I had moved back to my hometown of Houston, Texas, and, you know, had a really demanding job, and just kind of was on a hiatus from writing and marketing. And so now that the new book is out, it's like, it's almost like it's a whole new world now. And that engagement piece is pretty significant. And so it's like I'm having to uh, learn the new trending things to gain the visibility that I need to hopefully, be able to get the book in the hands of people. And so that's why I appreciate platforms like what you have here, Casey, that is helping with that process. And so definitely grateful to you and for the opportunity for the print interview and now the visual interview. And so, but just now really hitting that pavement, trying to figure out, if I'm gonna do social media, which platform is working best right now, because I'm 2 months into it now. And so I pretty much figured out, it's like, oh, I like this Twitter. So now it's like I'm engaging with people. If I see like a space, like an interview space going on, it's kind of like now tap in to see what they're talking about, what new tips are they sharing. And so just really kind of having a good time, because I'm really kind of like one of those introvert kind of folks, Casey. And so you know how we do, it's kind of like, oh, okay, long as I don't have to show up and be seen, and I can just kind of listen, and if I want to share a comment, I can, and keep it moving. But yeah, just really having a good time with these new platforms that are out there. It's like next week, I co-authored a book on leadership with some other authors, and so we'll be on Clubhouse. And so it's kind of like I had been fighting getting on Clubhouse. It's like, what is that all about? Just one more. And I tell you, so I finally downloaded the app and connected the other day, and some athlete has some kind of organization was doing one of those interview space, kind of whatever they calling it on Clubhouse. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, let me just see what this is all about. And so I just think for me, getting back into it now, just discovering all of the different platforms and avenues that are now available to gain visibility for myself and for the book. Pretty excited about that. And so you're right. And so now that we're into in-person events, I've got an in-person event scheduled here in Houston on March 5th. I've got some going south towards San Antonio in April and May. And so got some others slated for the fall, the summer, and the spring. So now just, getting back and out there in public, in person, to some of these book events. And so we'll just see how that works out for me. Because a lot of times what I found in the past, you in competition, which you already know, with trillions of other authors. And so when you go to a book event, if it's like 100 of you all, you better have something special that's going to attract folks to your table to say. So it's kind of like I got some little giveaways, cases. So hopefully that'll attract them, so I can share what the message is about the new book and hopefully get some sales.
You also have a publishing company. So for the aspiring writers, when they come to you, what do you offer?
So really, Casey, the publishing company is just me as a self-published author. How I've published my book using just-in-time publishing. I don't publish other authors. Okay. That's just the name of my business for my self-publishing. Because you have to establish yourself as a company, get your DBA and all of that stuff, and so my tax guy is like all the expenses related to that business, related to, the creation of the book, the marketing, or whatever, goes under Just-in-Time Fitness. But that's just as related to my self-publishing company.
All right. Well, with that said, let me just have one follow-up. Something you would say to a writer who wants to get published, they're not convinced, they haven't convinced themselves of something they should do, whether it's low self-esteem, whether somebody said something. what if you knew someone who wanted to write and they were, what would you do to help them make that decision to go ahead and publish?
You know what, Casey, is I tell anybody with anything that they aspire to do is none of us know when our time up on earth is going to be. You don't want to be one of the people when the people talking at your funeral and hopefully saying good things about you. It's like, you know what, Bridgette always wanted to write a book, and we know she was talented. She was the life of the party, had a story forever, and had started writing a book, had probably, just needed some coaching on finish it, but she never got it done. We just theorize it was fear. And we don't know why she was fearful. Because she was talented and she could have. And I just tell people, don't be afraid to pursue whatever your dreams are, whatever you aspire, whatever it is you want to achieve. Because none of us know tomorrow. It's like when the old folks said it back in the day, well, tomorrow not promised to you. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. With all the young people that's dying from whether it's kind of like just various situations, tomorrow really isn't promised to us. And I just tell anybody, whatever you think you want to do, if that's write a book, find out, connect yourself with the resources that's going to help you be able to do that. Sometimes, Casey, I think it's about finances. It's like, well, they said I got to get a professional editor. Yeah, you do. Okay. You need somebody to do a good book cover for you. You got to pay for that. Well, I don't have any money for that. It's like, okay, so, and it's where they probably look at me, Casey, and it's like, we shouldn't have told her. It's kind of like, so what you spending your money on? Starbucks, $5, $6, $7 a day. Oh, okay, gotcha. Eating out. It's like, oh yeah, I have to eat out. I eat out with my coworkers every day. Well, depending on where y'all eating out, that could be anywhere from $8 to $15 a day. Girl, let's go to Macy's because they got that sale going on.
That one day sale that happens every day.
Sale. Okay, so yeah, girl, I got a few pair of shoes for like $300. Oh, okay. So right there, that was probably like $500 a month. Easy. And so that's what I share with them. What's important to you, you're going to make a way. Don't use finances as an excuse for why you can't do something. Because in most cases, when I really penetrate the understanding of what people are spending their money on, the money is there. You just need to pivot and redirect it for what your goal is. If it's that important to you to publish your book, somebody has told you need to get it professionally edited, that might be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. Well, I've just found $500 a month for you right there. So if you pivot and redirect some dollars, the money is there. This is my favorite one right here because I have some friends that do it. And it was like, yeah, because we ordered our food, our groceries and had it delivered. Oh, okay. But it's free delivery. Oh, so did you tip the person? I know y'all tip the people. Oh, okay. Well, that could be money in your own pocket right there towards that goal. So I think that a lot of times, Casey, it's fear, but then it could be finances that people think they don't have the resources, the dollars to put towards the publishing of the book. And so then I help them understand more than likely the money is there. You just got to redirect it towards achieving this goal that you ultimately want to achieve in your life. And that doesn't happen without some sacrifice.
That is all the time we have for you today on The Ready Writer. I would like to thank our guest, Bridgette L. Collins, for coming on the show. Thank you, audience, as well, for watching. Have a great day.